Hello guys and welcome back to another video on this quick ace and review series. Today we have the tier 9 Cobra, which alongside the Defender Mark 1 just was available in the Black Friday deals for 1100, no actually, yeah, 1100 gold I think. No, 11,000, I'm sorry, gold, which I think is a pretty good price for it, considering I believe it was never sold before. So if it ever comes up again, maybe at like the Christmas auction for 10,000 gold or something like that, it's a good deal. And I'll showcase it why in this video. So if you don't know the Cobra, it's a very unique tier 9, mainly because it only has two types of shells, heat and high explosive, or actually hash. And that's it, you don't have a third type of shell. And the main deal with the Cobra, as you can see, is that you have the option to use your premium rounds, which are actually high explosive, to deal 100 extra damage at a cost of 50 penetration. So it's like a trade-off. It's kind of like an SU-100Y or an FE-4 at tier 10. If you have that vehicle, it's kind of similar. And the Cobra, besides having this pretty unique and cool gun, as you can see, it has 2300 DPM just with the heat rounds. If you add 100 extra damage, it actually is pretty, you know, its DPM actually goes through the roof. But besides that, the Cobra is a decently fast a medium tank with actually 10 degrees of gun depression, which is very, very important. And I'll showcase my equipment setup just here. The main thing that I would like to point out is I personally really like refined gun on this vehicle, because even though it's a medium, you don't really use it, you know, like any other tier 9 mediums. You don't really shoot on the move to actually make use of vert stabs. You're more of a sniper slash support vehicle, so I heavily recommend refined gun, and also running Cali, because well, not only your standard rounds become pretty solid, you know, without them you only have 230mm of penetration, which is horrible. Like when you see an E75, good luck trying to pan it. So first of all, that's a very good reason why to run Cali, and also because your hash rounds become just that tiny touch better, which is very, very important on this vehicle. I'll quickly showcase you the armor of this vehicle and then show you a good battle with it. So if we look at the tier 9 British vehicles, there's the Cobra. Now if you look at its armor, let's say we are running hash rounds, you know, just for the fact that it has 200mm. Let's maybe switch on calibrated shells. So, you know, 260mm is like, let's say, the standard penetration of like tier 8 vehicles, or for some it's like their premium penetration, like the old IS-6 gun. But let's just say that 216 is like standard. And as you can see, against 260mm, it actually has decent armor. I mean, it has like around 240, 250mm on the upper part of the turret, and like 260 or 270 on the lower parts, which actually, as you can see, when using 10 degrees of gun depression, is very, very solid. Like, good luck trying to pan that. But as soon as people switch to their premium rounds, yeah, even without Cali, I mean, yeah, with 235 against 235mm, it's actually not bad. Even on the flag round, it's not horrible. And when using gun depression, it actually is pretty decent. So as you can see, even against 235, it's very good. But as soon as people have Cali or like high penetration guns, yeah, it's pretty paper, it's pretty bad. So the armor on this vehicle is very interesting. Against lower tiers or lower penetration guns, it's actually pretty useful and it works very well. But as soon as you meet like a TD or higher penetration, like heavy or medium even, yeah, that's as long as your armor is going to hold out. As you can see, the hole is also pretty bad. I'm in a Cobra, like it can literally hash itself in the lower plate. It's very, very weak. The side armor is like not super impressive either, although you can like kind of try to side scrape, but since the turret is actually pretty weak against higher penetration rounds, it's pretty meh. So if you're like top tier, using your turret armor is a decent idea. It can work, but as soon as you're like against tier 9s or even tier 10s, don't rely on the armor. Don't be too aggressive because you'll regret it pretty fast, because it's not going to work. So now let's get into the ace battle. So we are right back in the game, and as you can see, we get Himmelsdorf tier 10 match. This is pretty terrible for the Cobra, mainly because, well, even though Himmelsdorf has a lot of hold down positions, the penetration of the enemies is strong enough that our third armor is pretty useless. But when I look at the enemy team, I see that they literally have no mediums, which is very funny, but it is what it is. So I decide that I'm going to push this flank alone, mainly because I can just get into position pretty quickly and spot if they have anyone crossing here. That's what I'm doing, as you can see. I'm seeing if maybe the minnow, maybe the cran decides to, come this way. And if they don't end up going this way, I can just go and flank them. Now in this situation, I make a mistake. I shouldn't have stopped to aim in. I should have just went full throttle and just flanked them. As you can see, even in this situation, I'm hesitating a bit, and the gun ends up trolling me. This is one thing about the Cobra, which is pretty annoying. Sometimes the gun can just troll you. Even here you'll see. Actually not here, but the next shot. The gun can just troll you and end up just somehow not penetrating the enemy and deal like, I don't know, 86 damage. Like, that's pretty unfortunate. Obviously, in certain situations, you would have ricocheted anyways with your heat rounds, so at least you deal damage, but make sure to know where the enemy has, spaced armor and whatnot, because otherwise you'll regret your life choices. In this situation, I see the minnow is looking at me. I pull right back and I try to get a shot into motion. I actually end up getting the shot into him, but at this point I'm thinking this is a terrible situation. Like, there's no way I can deal with that hold down minnow. So I'm thinking of trying to maybe get a crossfire situation going on, but our team's looking pretty terrible. Like, we're 0-2 down, this minnow of ours is going to die pretty soon. I'm looking at this as like, this is 100% a lost battle at this point almost, but this is where the but comes in. The enemy minnow makes a very big mistake. Instead of holding me down, he actually ends up pushing our basically dead minnow. Like, that dude was useless at this point, but he decides to push him, and the motion shots him twice, and I also get the kill on him with the ram. Now this allowed us to actually get into the back of the enemy, which is very, very crucial. End up getting a shot into the motion, he ends up missing, and this is where we can actually shine. Now the motion is pretty heavily armored, but as you can see, our heats have no problem of going through his sides. I'm not shooting Hesh because I'm pretty sure he has spaced armor there, so we would deal like 0 damage. Now at this point I'm thinking how I can get the most use out of this battle. I'm trying to kill the T-30, and the mouse ends up killing him. But it was very important that he dies because, extra 600 damage on them is very, very strong. The Kran also decides to make a pretty stupid push and just expose himself to the back of me. The motion dies from the mouse, and we can just, like, this is where this vehicle shines. Like 550 damage at this point twice into the enemy Kran in just, 12 seconds or something like that. Like, that's crazy. Another shot into him, minus 530. At this point we did like 1500 damage to him in no time. And this is where this vehicle is so good. And you can catch the enemies off guard, shoot them in the sides, shoot them in the back and whatnot. So at this point I want to make a pretty aggressive play, because I know the E100 wasn't looking there and the Kran is reloading, so I get an extra shot into him. At this point I understand that we need to basically sandwich them. It's almost a one battle at this point, or actually our heavies held up pretty nice, especially the mouse. I take the 600 from the E100, but it's fine because we end up killing the Kran, and at this point it's just clean up. And as you can see, if we face the E100 head on, we have a hard time penning him, or at least with hash. So I end up just shooting his lower plate for 53. I can't do more than that, and we end up going to his flank and only 360, but in the end Demolition kills him and we get the W with 5,000 damage. And I think this battle showcased where the Cobra shines, and there it's very bad. As you can see, we also end up getting a Kamikaze badge, which is pretty funny, and the Mastery badge Ace Tanker. So this battle showcased why the Cobra is, you know, such a strong vehicle, and also why it's kind of weak in certain situations. Like if you're facing tier 10s head on, you can forget about trying to do anything. Like that, you know, if you just stay there, they could have easily won this battle, right? But instead he made a pretty stupid decision by pushing arm, you know. It was very useless with only 600 HP stuck in the corner, and that allowed us to actually push the enemy from the back, and that was very crucial because not only could we farm them, but we also farmed them with hash, and we dealt a lot of damage by doing that. So if you can get like the sides or the back of the enemies, especially the heavies, you can actually end up dealing a whole lot of damage. Yeah, the mouse was actually pretty useful here, although he wasn't a very good player actually. And I mean the enemy was, yeah, they were also pretty mediocre players if anything. But that's the thing with Blitz, like unless you have enemies like this, getting good games is impossible. Like it's just what it is. You have to get these kind of matches. But I mean, even our Yak Tiger just dealt 0 damage. Like our team wasn't that durable, to be honest, but it showcased why the Cobra is such a good vehicle, but a very situational vehicle as well. So I only recommend getting the Cobra if you're like a decent player, because otherwise you'll struggle to understand when and when not to use hash, how to use hash, and also you'll just end up facing enemy, you know, heavy tanks head on or stuff like that, and you'll struggle. You really have to play to your advantages with this vehicle, and it's sometimes not very easy. Obviously, if you're facing against enemy mediums, you know, tier 9, tier 8, you have no problem penning them, even maybe with hash, but it can be difficult in certain situations. So the Cobra, whilst it's a very fun and strong vehicle, I only recommend that you get it if you know how to play this game very well, on a good level, because otherwise you won't find this vehicle fun. Like you'll just push the enemies, you'll get penetrated because you feel like you have a lot of armor, but you actually don't really, and the gun won't also treat you well, and you'll hate it. So only spend the gold on this vehicle if you've either played with hash guns before, like the Chieftain Mark 6 for example, or you're confident enough that you can make it work. But if you can, it's a very fun and rewarding vehicle, and it's pretty unique as well. So that was the Cobra. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more of my content, please subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon.